and try to work out how it functions. So, I mean, I was actually expecting her to come back with some sort of answer that, oh, you've been watching too many X-Files, my dear. And when she turned around and said, you have to have the facts and you can't tell the people, that was it.
And she said no more than that?
Oh, yes. I mean, I asked her what the facts were, and she said, you must have the facts.
But she wouldn't tell you what they were?
No. And she repeated, James, she said, you can't tell the people. Now, because she said that twice, then, you know, I assumed that she knew what I was talking about.
Georgina, when did you first become interested in whether or not there is a possibility of other beings within the universe?
I started looking into ufology 10 years ago, when I actually first started interviewing people that were the military. I mean, I like doing military cases because I believe that, you know, someone who sees a UFO or has had an experience with a UFO must know that it, you know, must know what they're talking about, James, because...
And you like men in uniform?
I love men in uniform.
Oh, I'd heard that in your biography, yeah.
Not true.
Go on.
Where was I now? You phone me.
Oh, so anyway, you
getting excited, you see, about those uniforms.
You were getting excited about the fact that there seems to be, or that some people seem to feel there is an enormous cover-up about some of this stuff. On the other hand, I have met an enormous amount of ufologists. Most of them, not all, there are people like Nick Pope and other people who are interesting, fascinating people. But the majority of the fans, if you like, are like train spotters. They're the sort of anoraks you see standing on the end of a platform writing the numbers of planes down. They are the last people that aliens of any sort would want to contact if they came to this planet.
Yeah, I think that, you know, there are different sections of... Well, that's not the right word for it, sections, but... Some people seem to think that ufology is some kind of cult, which I know that there's different areas, if you like. You can go out on a limb if you really go far out on a limb on it. But there are some very serious researchers and investigators, and you know they're not at all wacky or cranky, James. You know.
Can I start at let me start at the question that probably will finish the interview. You never know, but it's this. If these beings wanted to contact us, they would. If they felt, even if they'd contacted the authorities, if they felt they didn't like the way the authorities were handling it, they would make themselves known to us. All I'm saying is, why on earth are people... I mean, even if this thing is right, even if these beings are there... they obviously don't want the majority of people to know. So why don't we just leave them alone? Well,
that might not be their choice. I mean, obviously, they're not afraid of... I wouldn't think they were afraid of us, because I think that they're more advanced. They have to be more advanced than we are. But who's to say that we don't know that they've arrived? I mean, who's to say that certain government departments, military departments... have communicated with them, and there has been some sort of deal done whereby we don't tell the people for
it may not, as
reason.
Margaret Thatcher said to you can't tell the people, and maybe that's the way they want it. They don't want the people to be told.
Or maybe our governments don't want the people to be told.
For what reason?
Well, lots of reasons. Panic. I mean...
well, that's a good reason. So in that case, wouldn't you think that that people would panic if they found out this?
No.
It would change everywhere. You don't think so?
No, not now. I think maybe 50 years ago, yes.
Do you realise what would happen to the established churches all over this planet if this came out?
But would it? I mean, 50 years ago, I think, because we did not have the communication that we had today, James. Today, I always say, in fact, I think I have written it in my book, you know, that the Rendlesham forest incident took 3 years before it was made public. If that happened today, with the communications that we have worldwide, it could take 3 days. So I think that, you know, we are more educated on this subject
Let's
today.
talk a little bit because a lot of people still are not aware of the Rendlesham Forest UFO incident. Take us back to the beginning and just briefly go through. I mean, people want to find out more, they can get your book and they can read it, but just tell us what it is about this incident that has made it more interesting and more unusual than anything else.
Right. Well, it has been called the British Roswell. And it took place in December 1980, Christmas week. The first incident took place on Christmas Day, 1980. And what's so unusual about this case is it involved the United States Air Force, who were based at 2 RAF establishment, 2 RAF installations in Suffolk, rural Suffolk, in England. And on
Bent Waters
Bent
was one.
Waters, and Woodbridge.
Yeah.
And it actually happened on the perimeter of the Woodbridge base. Started off late in the evening on the 25th, where two airmen, like you said, had spotted lights in the sky. They went out to investigate and called the Central Security Control to see if they could, go and investigate further. Sergeant Penniston went out with another patrol, and that's where he encountered a triangular-shaped metallic object.
Not very big.
Not very big. It was, he said it was about 6 foot by 9 foot, but in actual fact, I spoke to the airman, the senior master sergeant who actually measured the landing site the day after. You know, we've got photographs now of the landing site. And it was 12 by 12. According to him, but we still don't know what the height was for that one. Anyway, he actually walked up, Sergeant Penniston actually walked up to the craft and touched it, which was warm to the touch. So that was the first day. The second day, the UFOs came back again, only this time they didn't land. And then, no one's really sure about whether it was the 27th or the 28th. And we because it was early in the morning sometimes when it happened, what I've done in the book is I've joined the two dates together, so you have the 25th, 26th, 26th, 27th, 27th, 28th, and so, because it's the simplest way of explaining it. It's a very complex case. But there was a second landing, and this time it was a huge craft, about 30 foot, and it was round, so it wasn't, although it did change shape.
So these small craft that there were a number of, and some of the airmen said that they seen them flying very low level through the forest, weaving in and out of the trees, I believe, on some of the accounts I've read, could have been unmanned, may have been sort of automatic.
Absolutely, yes, could have been.
But they didn't know at the time whether these could possibly have been something that was man-made.
Well, according to the witnesses that I've questioned, I've questioned former Sergeant Penniston several times. And, he's never changed his story, James. Yeah. He said that it was not anything. And, of course, he only retired from the military about 5 years. No, actually, it was 1994. So he'd been in the military for 20 years. And in all the time he's been in the service, he has never seen anything like what he saw that night, and neither have any of the other witnesses that I've interviewed.
And there were a lot of witnesses to this.
Yes, there were only 3 witnesses on the first. Actually, there were 4 because the sergeant who initially went out, Staff Sergeant Bud Steffens, who went out first with Airman Burroughs, he was supposed to go back into the forest with Penniston, and he actually disobeyed an order. He would not go back. So whatever it was out there, he was terrified. So there were actually 4 witnesses on the first night.
Let's go on to the next time that it came back, the large, big craft. What exactly happened then?
Well, that night, it's very debatable because according to Lieutenant Colonel Holt, he took a patrol out that night on the night of the second big encounter because it was getting out of control, according to him, and so he wanted to go out and debunk it. He took a patrol out there. Now, Holt has always said that there was not a landed craft. And there were about 30 airmen who were,
in the patrol,
like, guarding guarding the area further back. But with Holt's patrol, there were only 4 men with him, 4 or 5 men, he always said. Now, until recently, we didn't know who they were, but I managed to get hold of the first copy. I actually brought one along for you, James.
Oh, good.
Keep.
Thank you.
Okay. This tape, there was a tape recording that was released to a couple of ufologists in 1984, which was a recording which Holt and the men did when they went out into the forest on that second major incident.
Do you have it with you now?
Yes, I do.
Is it on cassette?
Yes, it is.
Can I have it?
Yes, you can.
Ash, have we got a facility to play this?
I'll come and get it.
Thank you very much.
Oh, my
Georgina
God.
has a very big bag, and she is at this particular moment rummaging in the bottom.
Yes, there you are, James.
Okay.
Especially for you.
Thank you. How long does this tape take?
It's 18 minutes.
All right. Could you go and have a little listen, and we'll hear from
James
bits
has
of
handed
it.
me the cassette.
Thank you very much, senior producer.
The first part of the cassette, by the way, Ash, is about where they're examining the landing site, which presumably is the landing site of the first night.
Sure.
But according to the witnesses, it came back in exactly the same place as the previous night.
Did they see any signs of life at all?
According to some witnesses, they did, but Holt has always said that it was just lights that he saw. Don't forget, he's seen in person, and it's possible. I mean, who knows? But I spoke on this tape that I found. If I can explain this, because it's very, very important. This tape now that you have was released to the public in 1984, but by a Colonel Sam Morgan,
right,
who at the time was the base commander. And no, actually, he wasn't the base commander because he'd just retired. He'd gone to another base. So, but he released this tape into the public domain, if you like. What he did was he recorded the tape from the original master copy, which was one of these tiny little tapes, you know, these weeny ones you get in the tape recorder. And he'd recorded it on one of these little machines, which of course are very, very, you know, they're not very good. And consequently, the one that was out in the public domain and has been bandied around for years and years and years, it's a very, very bad copy. Now, Sam Morgan, I got this direct from Sam Morgan. This is his master, the master tape. This one here is a recording of the master. And there are names on it.
Let's have a little listen.
Have a little difficulty. We can't get the light on to work. It seems to be some kind of mechanical problem. But send back and get another light on. Meantime, we're going to take some readings at the geyser counter and chase around the air a little bit, waiting for another light off to come back in. The security control. Yes, that's one of the times is odd number. Okay, we're now approaching area within about 25, 30 feet. What kind of readings are we getting? Anything? Just minor clicks. Minor clicks. Reading impressions. One. Is that all the bigger they are? Well, there's one more well defined. The security control. We're still getting clicks. Yes, security 6 or 8. Can we read that on the scale? Yes, sir. We're now on the 5/10 scale, and we're reading about third, fourth increment. Okay, we're still comfortably safe here. You don't have a light on? Full gas ready. Security. Can you hear me? There's still minor readings. 6, 7, with gas orientation. Security. Oh, this one's good. It's from the third one over here. Yes, now I'm getting some residual. I can read now. The meter's definitely giving a pulse.
We'll come come back to more of that tape in a little moment, Georgina. That's fascinating. What we're hearing here is the tape, which is on like a little dictaphone machine that they have with them, and they're recording what's going on, which they need to do when they're in a situation like this. We're hearing the patrol actually out in the forest, in Rendlesham Forest, encountering what they considered to be some kind of mystery object that has landed in the wood. And at this time, they don't know if it's a UFO or anything else. They're really not sure at all. We'll come back in a moment right after these words.
What's for the tingling in your hair?
Welcome back, the James Whale Radio Show with you tonight. We're talking to Georgina Bruni, who is an authoress, an investigative journalist. Her new book is called You Can't Tell the People. It's about the Rendlesham Forest UFO mystery. Georgina has, and I didn't know this until a few moments ago, also got a tape. And we'll go back to the tape in a little while. She has also got a tape of the discussions of the patrol, the American Forces patrol out in Rendlesham Forest during the nights of the 25th, 26th, 27th and 28th of December 1980. This is... More and more people are beginning to know about this story now, but until recently, if you were to ask any Tom, Dick or Harry or Harriet going down the street, do you know anything about the Rendlesham Forest UFO mystery? They would say no. This was the realms only of those people who are really into UFOs and everything else. Now, I heard somebody rang me the other night, Georgina, and they said, I mentioned the story earlier, I knew somebody who was working there. Maybe if the guy's listening, he'll phone again. And they definitely had a craft, one of these small things, and they boxed it up and sent it back to the USA. Have you heard that before?
No, but it's really interesting you should say that. Yes, I have. I mean, Nick Redfern wrote a book recently called Cosmic Crashes. And apparently he spoke to someone from a television company. I'm not quite sure about who it was. There was a pseudonym used there. Who said that, yes... that it did not fly away, and, that it was captured, if I remember rightly. I just cannot believe that part of it, because there is absolutely... I'm one of these people that has to have evidence. And if you don't have the evidence, then you have to really look into what the witnesses are saying. No witness has ever told me. But there's an interesting thing here, James, because I managed to locate the Deputy Base Commander of the Air Force Office of Special Investigations, which is an agency that actually polices the U.S. Air Force, like the equivalent of the FBI, if you like. And he was the Deputy Base Commander on Bentwaters, Woodbridge. And one of the things he said to me was, did they track it on radar when it left? And I said, no, actually. Which was very interesting. It was tracked on radar coming in, but it wasn't tracked on radar going out. And, of course, I couldn't get anything else from him. Now, so you're kind of left hanging on that one.
What of the American... Obviously, you've taken 3 years to put this book together. It's got photographs that have never been seen before.
That's right.
It's got all sorts of interviews with people that have never been told before. What have the authorities, both here and in America, said to you when you've presumably been trying to get interviews with them about this?
Yes. Well, I've had authorities. I really haven't had anything positive back from the authorities. But
did the RAF grant you an interview about it?
No.
What did they say?
Well, what I've had always is, first of all, I've written to the Ministry of Defence. Obviously, I wrote to the Ministry of Defence Police. And it was very interesting because I had not just someone from the Secretariat write to me, respond to my letter. It was the head of the department. When I asked if I could have a tour of Woodbridge, the base, which was still reasonably active, and not in so much as it was used for training purposes. I was expecting to have just a normal a security guard to take me around. Who do I get but the Chief of Security for the Ministry of Defence at Colchester? When I was interviewed recently, who did I get but the Chief? So I'm going to talk about that bit right now. But all the way along, I've been dealt with at the top level, if you like. So... What did they say then? What did they say when they took you around Woodbridge? Well, the Chief of Security, he must have asked you what you were writing about. You told him. What did he say? Well, I didn't actually tell him anything. You didn't? No, because he didn't ask.
He must have been interested as to why you wanted... You said you were doing a book.
He didn't
of
ask.
No?
Honestly, James, he didn't ask. When I wrote to them, initially, I had to write to Colchester because that's where the security is.
But you had to say why you wanted to look
I
at
did
it.
say then, yes, that I was investigating for a book that I was writing, but he never once asked me during the tour or anything like that. He was very good, very helpful.
And did you mention to him the UFO mystery?
No, not even when he drove us to the East Gate, because we were driving around
Sure.
the whole base. And when he stopped at the East Gate and he said, "This is where the ufologists hang out." And even then I never said anything.
Yeah.
You know. So it was never mentioned at all.
All right. What did the Americans say?
The Americans, again, were non-committal. But, you know, I mean, I have found some documents which were telegram cables that were sent to RAF Mildenhall, which is
Sure.
the main office for public affairs. It was then. It's still RAF Mildenhall, still operational, and also were sent to Ramstein, which is the headquarters of the U.S. Air Force in
Sure.
Europe. Cables which actually said that the Ministry of Defence did not do an investigation, and that it was of no defence significance. And these were sent in '84, and also that the Air Force Office of Special Investigations did not investigate the case. But I have found a lot of information out about that particular agency, and I do believe that they did investigate it. In fact, I have names of people who actually did the investigation.
Have you been able to speak to them?
No. Well, yes and no.
Why are you being so cagey?
Well, I
with
have
me?
to be a little bit cagey on that one because it's in there. It's in the book. You need to really look for it.
Why do you
Sorry.
need to be a little
Well,
cagey?
because this person's still in the U.S. Air Force, and
Some of the
and it's
people
not
who...
named. It's not named.
Some of the people who were there in the evening, some of the American servicemen who were there, subsequently had strange things happen to them, didn't they?
After,
Yeah.
In the aftermath, yeah.
Disappeared and
yes.
were discredited in many ways. Their U.S. career, Army career, didn't really go very well.
Well, one of the sergeants, Sergeant Adrian Bustinza, was actually stripped of his stripes and put back to senior airman. Now, when I spoke to his commanding officer, who was his commanding officer at the time, who retired as Lieutenant Colonel Malcolm Zickler, he told me that Bustinza was a very, very good airman and was worthy of his promotion because he was the man who promoted him to sergeant. Bustinza was harassed, bothered right, and even afterwards, even after he retired, when he left there to go to another air base, he was immediately stripped of his stripes. And I think that he probably was got at because I think Bustinza did talk about it, and you weren't supposed to talk about it, James.
In your heart of hearts, Georgina, you think that there was a craft that they managed to get hold of and that they sent back to America?
No, I do not.
Oh, you don't?
No, I don't. No, I
You-
don't buy that one, James.
Okay, you don't think there was. But you think that obviously the British authorities, the American authorities know exactly or know more as to what was going on. You don't think it was just dismissed?
Oh,
But
no,
somewhere,
no.
somewhere there is a document all about this.
Yes, it was not it could not have been dismissed.
So you believe, though, that one of these flying saucers, call them whatever you want, didn't take off, didn't go again?
I think it did. You know, I mean, the witnesses do say that it took off, and what they say was that it broke sometimes on the second event when it landed, when it took off, it kind of hovered and then split into three, and then just disappeared or took off.
If you just tuned in, I'm talking to Georgina Bruni, who's written a book called You Can't Tell the People. It's all about the Rendlesham Forest UFO mysteries. To find out more about it, you're going to have to read the book, obviously. But she has managed and had to get a tape from one of her sources. This is a tape that was recorded by the patrol, the American patrol, on the night they went out into Rendlesham Forest because they'd seen lights in the sky. They weren't sure what they were going to find. It's recorded on a sort of, like one of these little dictaphone tape recorders they would have had stuck there, just so that they had some sort of evidence. This is the clearest one of these tapes, I must admit, that I've ever heard. We're now going to listen to a little bit of it that's almost self-explanatory, but this is where they suddenly see something. You've got to listen very carefully to this, because obviously there's a lot of heavy breathing and a lot of men running around, and they are actually late at night, cold winter's night, in a forest, not sure what's going on, not sure whether they're going to come up against something that is likely to do them harm or not. Let's hear the tape.
The first nightbird we've seen, we're about 150 or 200 yards from the site. Everything else is just deathly calm. There's no doubt about it. There's some type of strange flashing red light ahead. There's yellow. I saw a yellow tinge in it too. Weird. It appears to be maybe moving a little bit this way. It's brighter than it has been. Yellow. It's coming this way. It is definitely coming this way. Pieces of it are shooting off. There's no doubt about it. This is weird. To the left. Yeah, definitely two lights. One light to the front, one light to the left. Keep the flashlights off. There's something very, very strange. Keep the headset on. See if it gets any stronger. Okay. Give us your rundown. Notation that this is on the beta reading, too. On the beta reading? Beta shield has been removed. Okay. This is falling off it again. It just moved to the right. Yeah. Dropped to the right. Strange. Oh, wait to the left. Let's approach to the edge of the woods up there. Can you want to do it without lights? Let's do it carefully. Come on. Okay, we're looking at the thing. We're probably about 200 to 300 yards away. It looks like an eye winking at you. It's still moving from side to side. And when you put the star scope on it, it sort of has a hollow center, a dark center. It's like a pupil of an eye looking at you and winking. And the flash is so bright through the star scope that it almost burns your eye. Past the farmer's house and across in the next field, now we have multiple sightings of up to 5 lights with a similar shape and all, but they seem to be steady now rather than a pulsating or glow with a red flash. We just crossed the creek. Here we go. And we're getting what kind of readings now? Getting 3 good clicks on the meter, and we're seeing strange lights in the sky. 244, we're at the far side of the second farmer's field, and made sighting again about 110 degrees. This looks like it's clear out to the coast. It's right on the horizon. Moves about a bit and flashes from time to time. Still steady or red in color. Also, after negative readings in the satellite field, we're picking up slight readings, 4 or 5 clicks now on the meter. 305. We see strange strobe-like flashes to the rather sporadic, but there's definitely something, some kind of phenomenon. 305 at about 10 degrees horizon directly north. We've got 2 strange objects, half moon shape, dancing about with colored lights on them. But guess to be about 5 to 10 miles out, maybe less.
Okay, we'll come back in a moment right to that point of the tape, don't worry. Georgina, the clicks they're talking about is not, this is not a bit of tape from Vietnam. This is actually the clicks on, they have a Geiger counter and they're checking out whether or not there's radiation there.
They are picking up radiation.
Just before I take a break, tell me why you're convinced that this is authentic and not just some Americans playing a joke.
Well, yes, it's definitely an authentic tape, but it is edited. It's been edited, with no doubt, and someone along the way has edited this tape. I'm no doubt about that.
So this isn't somebody taking the mick or recording something a long time after the event. This is actually when it's happening. Yes, I believe it. I mean, when I spoke to Sergeant Adrian Bustinso, who you can actually hear at the beginning of this tape when he's talking to Central Security Control, you can hear him saying Sergeant Bustinso here. 3 times he says this. You don't get that on the other one. Okay.
And when I spoke to him, he remembers. I mean, we went through this, and he said, "No, this is the tape, but it's edited." And
what does he think they've cut out of it?
Well, they've cut out the landing, according to Adrian Bustinso. They've cut out the actual landing of the UFO and where they were all like freaking out on it, And at one time he said he was standing next to Neville's, who was the guy with the Geiger counter, and they were picking up, radiation.
Right, we're going to take a break. We're going to come back. We're going to hear more of the tape. a fairly primitive recorder. But this copy is excellent because
Yes.
you've actually had it enhanced, haven't you, and put it through bigger and better recorders. So
And I'm enhancing it.
and he's enhancing it, of course. Yes, not too. I knew he'd have to chip in somewhere along the line.
Oh, yeah.
Are you all right, though, Georgina?
Fine,
Okay,
James.
fine. She's worried about being got hold of
Don't
after
worry,
writing
man.
the book.
Got my cord.
Okay. Let's listen to this again.
305 at about 10 degrees horizon directly north. We've got two strange objects, half moon shape, dancing about with colored lights on them. But guessed to be about 5 to 10 miles out, maybe less. The half moons have now turned into full circles. Well, there was an eclipse or something there for a minute or two. 315, now we've got an object about 10 degrees directly south, 10 degrees off the horizon. And the ones to the north are moving, one's moving away from us. It's moving out fast.
This one on the right heading away, too.
Yeah, we're both heading north. Here he comes from the south. He's coming toward us now. Now we're observing what appears to be a beam coming down to the ground. This is unreal. 330, and the objects are still in the sky, although the one to the south looks like it's losing a little bit of altitude. We're turning around and heading back toward the base. The object to the south is still beaming down lights to the ground. 400 hours, one object still hovering over Woodbridge Base at about 5 to 10 degrees off the horizon, still moving erratic and similar lights and beaming down this area.
And that's it. There is a transcript of this tape in the book as well. Beaming down the lights, Georgina, is like something from Star Trek. I mean,
So,
what did the Americans say about this incident? I mean, what is their official response about this incident?
but it was just lights in the sky and nothing more.
But obviously, because of the amount of people who've seen it, and a number of people have written their accounts anyway, your book is the first time they've all been brought together, and you've done interviews with people who've never been spoken to before. Listening to this tape, have you told the American authorities about this tape?
The who, James?
The American authorities?
No.
No?
They will read about it for the first time in the book.
Oh, you weren't? You've told them about the book?
Not
You
the
said-
American authorities.
No?
I believe that, my publishers have either sent or are sending our authorities a copy of the book. And, but probably not the Americans.
I mean, what they will do is just disregard it and not make any mention at all, as you
Yes.
know, unless, in the near future, if you suddenly disappear.
James.
Well, I don't want to frighten you, Georgina.
Maybe
But
I
you
need
know,
to get my bodyguard back again.
Did you have a bodyguard for a while?
Well, no, I mean, I don't know if you've heard of Jacqueline Davis, but she wrote a book.
Yeah, we had her on the show.
Did we?
Did you
Yes,
have
female
Jacqueline?
bodyguard.
Oh, yes, I remember.
Of course
Yes,
you did,
I remember, yeah.
that's right. I used to do PR. I probably
Yeah.
have to come on your show. Jacqueline actually came to Rendlesham with me, and also round the bases. She actually came with me, and when we were going out to the Woodbridge Rendlesham Forest, she said, "Oh, well, if there's an alien spaceship that comes down, I'll guard you." And I said, "I don't think it'll make any difference at all, Jacqueline, because if a dozen or so military men ran for their lives or were scared, in other words, there's not a lot we can do. Two women in a forest." No, anyway.
When you started this, Georgina, you're not particularly interested in UFOs, are you?
I am now.
Are you are. Well, that's what my point. You see, when you started this, you were doing it because it's a good story, and you thought there was something there that hadn't been investigated that you wanted to. How has this changed your view?
Well, I actually got interested in UFOs, I'd say, about 10 years ago, but certainly when I looked at the Rendlesham Forest case, the reason I was interested in this is because everyone was calling it the Britain's Roswell in 1987, which is the 50th anniversary of the Roswell incident. And I honestly, James, did not know what to make of it because there'd been so much nonsense written and talked about it over the years. And it was very sort of... if you when you get a chance to read the book, you'll see that there was disinformation, there was rumor, there was all sorts of things going on, and it was just a very complex case to put together. But it was a challenge, And for me, it was a challenge, but then I realized, a quarter of the way through, that it was also a very human story, and it involved real people who had, this experience, which even by today they cannot comprehend.
And most of these people have been damaged in one way or another. They don't want to talk about it now. They don't like to talk about it. It's something they'd rather forget.
Yes, I mean, when I spoke to Adrian Bastinso, who had actually gone on record in 1984, but at that time he would never discuss the interrogation part, because he said that part of what happened was worse in his mind than what happened before, because he was told bullets are cheap, a dime a dozen. I mean, he was taken down to a little room, ordered to sit on a very small wooden chair, stare into a light bulb with two guys in black military uniforms, overall type uniforms. And he was told that what he saw was the beam from the lighthouse. And he said, no, it wasn't. And they said, you don't get the message, do you? It was the lighthouse beam. And he had to sit there for hours and hours and hours until he was until he told them, okay, it was the lighthouse beacon. And then they started all over again, just to make sure. So, I mean, they were really scared.
If you want to talk to Georgina, the line.
In a whole history of strange phenomena around Rendlesham.
You live in Rendlesham, do you?
Yeah, that's right. Well, actually, I've just moved out, just out onto the border now, but I actually used to live on Bentwaters itself.
What, you were in the services there? Or?
No, I wasn't, no. I was in the accommodation.
Okay.
Although our factory's actually moving on there again now. So
actually, we've spoken about this before, haven't we?
Yes, we have,
okay,
with Nick Pope.
Yeah.
But, it started with the very well-documented case in 1956, where two RAF Venom night fighters were actually scrambled to chase a target on radar. And as I was speaking to yourself and Nick Pope last time, it seems that strange things are still going on. I told you about the discrediting and the denotice type stuff.
What's that banging in the background?
Banging?
Did you hear some banging?
It's not my end.
I heard some banging. But...
It's probably the car doors of a 59 Cadillac.
Right.
So strange things, you reckon, are still going on around that area?
Definitely, yes.
Go on, Georgina.
John, you were talking about the 1956 Bentwaters Lake and Heath event there. There's actually, when you get to reading my book, you'll find that the very first incident, the recorded incident we know of now, is 1946. 46, which of course what proves a very important thing, James, that this is not an American thing, because the Americans did not move into Bentwaters or Woodbridge until 1952. So whatever is going on now and then was nothing to do with the United States Air Force.
So hang on, why, if you're going to visit an area, why pick Rendlesham? I mean, it's in a fairly inaccessive part, although it's not far from anywhere, I suppose. Just nothing goes on. Why go there?
Well,
there's a point that I'd like to bring up there, James. There's been a lot of secret technology developed. The over-the-horizon radar, in fact, radar in general. There's all the business with the Shingle Street, where all the burnt troops turned up on the beach and stuff. But
what was that? I don't know about that.
Yeah, and they've put another 50 years on the secrecy notice, but during the war, apparently just down the road in Shingle Street, the sea was set on fire and hundreds of bodies turned up on the beach, fused and burnt in German uniforms.
Actually, John, this is another one of those stories that's got a little bit out of hand. I do cover this Shingle Street mystery in the book as well, and the documents were released in 1992, and although it doesn't mention anything about the hundreds of British, allegedly, servicemen that were burnt on the beach and buried in the nearby forest, that could have happened, but there is no evidence to prove as yet that it really did. But the documents that have been now revealed do say that they were testing bombs and other equipment on the beaches. And of course, Shingle Street was not the only village that was had problems. I mean, the whole area was used for training purposes. So lots of the villages in Suffolk at that time were actually taken over by the army.
Well, one of the things that I really wanted to speak to you about, you talk about it being a British Roswell, which both seem to have very powerful radar systems that were, and craft that came down. Are you aware of the, I'm sure you are, of the North American radio system that they had with Martlesham Heath and
Yes.
99 stations or something, with Project Teabag? Well, there's also another system which was called, DEW, which I always took to be distant early warning systems. But looking through the dictionary of military terms, the DEW actually stands for a system using directed energy primarily as a direct means to damage or destroy enemy equipment, facilities and personnel. And we know that the DEW was being used with the Martlesham Heath radar system at the time.
Right.
So why?
How do we know that, John?
I've got some rather interesting stuff in front of me. Are you coming to Woodbridge?
Yes, I am. I'm coming there for a talk on the 23rd. I'd love to meet you.
Yeah, I'd like to meet you as well. And in fact, one other thing that I'd like to give to you, if you'd like it, is where the runway lights were apparently damaged on the night.
Yes.
Draw a straight line down there, and there's a big dugout. We've actually found part of a brake system in there as well.
Oh, really? That's interesting.
So if you'd like to have a look, see what you make of that.
That's very interesting, John.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye. I want to know why this area is so... I mean, I didn't realise that things have been going on since the 40s there. I mean, why? Is it obviously whoever comes or whatever comes back a time and time again?
I don't know. I mean, one of the very first chapter in my book, James, covers the whole history of Alford Ness and the whole area there. For more than 70 years. We have the actual area has been used for military experiments of all kinds, weather experiments.
Do you know, I've never been to that part of the world, I must admit. We're going
I just wonder if you're... Sorry, the phone's making a bit of a noise.
It is, yeah.
Your answer, guest, does she know that there's already been a programme on television about that?
Did you know there's been a program?
Yes,
There've been many, haven't there? Yeah.
Actually, it was one of the Strange But True series. I was talking to David Alpin last night, the producer, and that was in 1994, I believe, Alan.
Extraction of the airmen looking in the forest for the lights and everything, witnesses, and it's already been on television.
That's right, yeah. So
you knew about it?
I do, yeah.
We did, thank you, Alan, very much indeed. Mike in Norfolk, you're on the air through to Georgina. Hello.
Hello, is that me?
I don't know, is it you?
Mike from Norfolk.
Yeah.
Hello, Mike.
Hello there. Yeah, I've got a couple of questions, actually. Well, I've only just started listening to it about 11:30, yeah? So I might have missed this, but last night James had a chap call up.
Mike.
Hello.
Hi. Your voice is changing, Mike. You know, you're going to put on a silly accent. You have to try and keep the same accent going. Do you understand?
James.
Jerry in Wolverhampton, you're on the air. Hello.
Hello, James. Very nice to talk to you again. And hello, Georgina.
Hello.
Georgina, I'd read reports that on the second night, the craft was actually shining weapons down onto a facility where there were housed nuclear weapons, and lights were shining down as if the craft seemed to know that there were nuclear weapons on the base. Have you investigated this?
Yes, I have, and I don't have any evidence to prove that there were beams beaming down on the Bentwaters base, because I have interviewed men...
Although we heard on that tape that there were.
No, that was a beam in the forest, James.
Oh, I see.
That was a beam in the forest.
Yeah.
There's this story whereby there was one of the beams that were allegedly beamed down on the weapons storage area.
Did they have nuclear weapons there?
Yes, they did at Bentwaters, short range, but not in the Woodbridge base.
Okay.
And but I've interviewed witnesses who were on duty in the weapons storage area that night and that week, and according to them, there was no beams. There were no beams.
Georgina, what do you think of Jerry Randles, who seems to think that the whole of the incident was linked to American psychological warfare?
Who's Jerry Randles?
I beg your pardon, James. That's a Freudian slip. I meant Jenny Randles.
Who's Jenny Randles?
She's a ufologist, James. I think you spoke to her.
I have, actually. You're right.
Yes.
I'm getting old. I forget these things.
Sorry, what did you say about she seems to think what?
I apologise, Georgina. Jenny Randles took the view in somewhere where I'd read that the whole of the UFO incident was an experiment in psychological warfare by American intelligence.
I think Jenny's had several theories over the years. You would not really do it on foreign territory. You would do it in your New Mexican deserts or somewhere like that, and not just with three or four men on the first night. I don't believe it had anything to do with any experiments. But having said that, there is a piece in my book where Ray Boucher, who was also a very good investigator on this case, had received a visit from two agents, and they told him that the bent waters experiment was something that was being done by the U.S. government. It could have been disinformation. We have to have some kind of evidence here for these theories.
All right, Jerry, thank you for your call. There are lots of arguments between people like yourself and Jenny Randles, who I often wonder whether it's all about scoring points onto who's got the best stuff or who hasn't. But, I mean, she has tried to sort of rubbish what you're doing a little bit, hasn't she?
Has she?
Well, I've read a few things where she has. I mean, she's apparently the accepted authority on all things UFO, and you're like the new kid on the block, aren't you?
Well, I guess I am a new kid on the block, really. I wasn't. I don't know too much about that, but I'm not doing this to score points. I didn't write this book for ufologists. I wrote this book because I hoped that people in government circles might read it and might, as I say, tell us all what's really going on. I also wrote it, James, for the airmen of the witnesses who were involved, because they wanted their story to be told. And, this is not just about my theories do not come into this book at all. It's all, as much facts as possible. So, in fact, I do go through everyone's theories.
Okay. Let's talk to Jerry, who's calling us from Brussels tonight. Hi, Jerry. You're on the air.
Hello, James. Hello, Georgina.
Hello, Jerry.
Yeah, that's actually a mistake. The name is Richard, actually.
Sorry, Richard.
I was working at Bentwaters and Woodbridge as a taxi driver at this time, although I'm on the road as a trucker now. And there was a lot of talk around this time amongst the passengers in the cab. And then about 3 days afterwards, it went absolutely suddenly quiet. We were friendly with some of the security police on the base who used us, and I can give you his name, but I won't on air. And he told me that there had been word come down from above that it was not to be discussed anywhere.
Yes, that's right.
Well, hang on, Jerry. Richard, sorry. What do you mean it wasn't to be... Who told you it wasn't to be discussed?
He was a senior master sergeant in the security police.
Yeah.
And he'd had orders come down from above saying that it was not to be discussed with anyone.
Did he give you a reason?
I don't think the senior Air Force staff tend to give reasons to Master Sergeant James.
That's right, he was a Master Sergeant.
Yeah. Yes, he was.
Well, I mean, you were a civilian, and you would have thought if they wanted to hide it, they'd have been better off just shutting up about it.
Well, they actually said that was not to be discussed at all. But
you must have heard some interesting conversations between the serving airmen in the back of your cab.
Absolutely, there was a lot of talk
about this case.
The general type of thing was, with expletives deleted, that they were scared.
Yes.
Did anybody say what they thought it was? Did they think it may have been something from Russia or some communist country that had got over there, or what?
No, that was never suggested. The whole sort of consensus of opinion was that it came from they know not where.
That's very interesting. Would it be possible to get Richard's number, James? Richard.
I've already given it to Ash.
Yeah, I'd like to talk to you further on this, if I may.
You can buy it off me.
Buy it off you, Ash.
Yeah, that's very nice of you, Ash. Thank you. All right, Richard.
Thank you.
Thanks, Georgina. Bye.
All right, drive safely. Bye. So there we are.
Yeah, that's really interests me, because I actually tried to trace some of the taxi drivers that were there at the time. And of course, that company, I believe, is closed down now, so it was very, very difficult to take that further, because I had heard that the men did, open up to the taxi drivers. They had a unit on the base on the Bentwaters base.
What about pubs in the area? What about, or were they? I mean,
Yeah.
Americans tend to be fairly well served on their bases for things like that, don't they?
No, they do. I mean, there's a great story in my book about a local pub called the Swan at Alderton, where they used to meet up with one of the local chaps from the area. And so, yes, there was a lot of, a lot of talk in the pubs at the time. I believe that Brenda Butler and Dot Street, who were the first two investigators on this case, had found a lot of information, through talking to the local people.
All right, we'll continue on if you want to join us, 08700 40 50 60. What actually makes you, just before we go to the break, what makes you think that this wasn't some kind of technology developed on this planet that they were testing out there? How can we be sure that that wasn't the case?
Well, because it was so advanced. And, I don't know for sure. I can only go by what... I wasn't there, James, so I can only go by what the witnesses tell me, and all the information that we have so far. It just doesn't point to that sort of thing happening.
All right, 08700 40 50 60, or of course you can email us on TalkSport.
Phone warehouse.
Trying to be James, yeah. Basically going down near the site, down Friday Street, that's right, Georgina, yeah?
Yes.
Why is that particular area still cordoned off? Why are there not trees growing in that area? And what's that shed doing in there? Why is it... after all these years?
I think, from what... I know where you're talking about there. The shed is some kind of deer hut or something where I don't know why they put them there, but maybe they're doing this... we call it when you kill deer to keep them...
Oh, I see.
Whatever. Yeah. But I know that's supposed to be where they keep the deer. I don't know. I don't know what you mean by the trees.
Well, there aren't many trees growing near the site, and there seems to be some sort of obstacle course.
There is a barren place there, yes.
Yeah, and we are talking about the right place because it's near a ploughed field, near an oak tree. Mm-hmm. I was up in the 80s at Framlingham College, so I wasn't really too sort of au fait with the site area until sort of recently, and I just wonder why they've still got it cordoned off.
Well, it isn't, as far as I know.
Isn't it?
No.
Oh, I walked down there.
Can you wander down and look at where this all happened? Did you do that? Did you walk to that area in the trees that there's a photograph in your book of?
That's right. You can't drive down there anymore. You used to be able to drive down there.
I wonder if we're actually talking about the right site, because I was walking down near what I think is the site on Sunday. It's down Friday Street.
Well, this is debatable because I know that the initial landing site, which was pointed out by Brenda, where Lieutenant Colonel Charles Holt says that the landing site was, and Steve Roberts, who spoke to Brenda Butler. But according to Jim Peniston, who I showed the map to, he was the one. Don't forget, he was the witness there on the first night. And according to Adrian Bustinser, who was a witness on the second event, both of them do not agree that landing site was the original landing site.
Right.
So, it's very difficult. We are talking about a forest here.
Yeah.
But the one that Brenda showed me is a very barren area there. The trees aren't growing. And I've seen that for myself.
Maybe this
it is near Friday Street, I believe.
Yeah. They did a documentary on the Rendlesham area, and I believe what I saw on the documentary was a tree near that particular site I'm talking about, and then hardly any trees growing there.
Well, that's there seems to be trees growing. There seems to be young trees, but there still is this barren area. If you read my book, you'll see the picture. There is a picture there of the original landing site, the initial landing site, which was taken about 24 hours or so, or immediately after the initial event.
Right.
So, not that it's going to show you exactly where it was.
This is still a military base, isn't it? Even now,
it's shut down now.
Yeah, but the Ministry of Defence still own this land.
Yeah.
So, like most Ministry of Defence bases, they're not going to have it open to people to wander around.
Well, no, it's actually the Rendlesham Forest is owned by the Forestry Commission, but Bentwaters is closed down, but this was happened on the perimeter of RAF Woodbridge.
But most of the Bentwaters is there mostly intact, though, isn't it? Still.
Bentwaters is, yes. But the actual forest is owned by the Forestry Commission.
And did you talk to anybody in the Forestry Commission and ask them what they thought about this?
Yes, I talked to the forester who was one of the chief foresters at the time, Vince Fairkettle, and he was the one who came out with the theory that these were animal scratchings. But he didn't go actually to the site until 6 weeks afterwards.
Georgina?
Yes?
Do you get the sort of impression that no one locally wants to talk about it?
Well, I have talked to a couple of local people. I mean, I've talked to a lot of local people, and yes, I mean, I spoke to Andrew Sheepshanks, whose father was Captain Sheepshank, and you know, Andrew was supposed to have seen something in the area. In fact, I was talking to Andrew again last night, and he said that, you know, people in the area were maybe afraid to talk because of ridicule.
Yeah. A friend of mine said that a relation of theirs saw something coming over Orford Lighthouse, but you get you get this thing about the lighthouse, don't you, all the time?
Oh, yes.
That's a constant thing that's actually sort of putting blockades in your way.
I think, though, when you read my book, we've dealt with the lighthouse theory, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the interesting things was we never until I found him until I interviewed Edward Kavanasak, who was the missing link on the first night. He actually I've interviewed him extensively, and he does say it was not the lighthouse. I know what the lighthouse was. It was to the right of the lighthouse. So, you know, he was always the one that people said, oh, well, you know, what did he think?
Sure.
And, but not just that. I mean, here we have, if this was a lighthouse, James, you've got to hear this. If this was a lighthouse, it would be some kind of Doctor Who thing, you know, because we have landing marks. I mean, the photographs in the book can't see too clearly on that, but we actually have photographs of the landing marks.
And how far away is the lighthouse from there, anyway?
5 miles.
Well, there we are. Lawrence, thank you for your call.
That's great, James. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Good night. Bye-bye.
If you get the ringing tone, hang on. We will get you as soon as we can. Georgina Bruni is with me. If you want to talk to her, question about the Rendlesham Forest UFO mysteries, you've got about 20 minutes left. Charlotte in Somerset's been waiting half an hour. You're on the air. Hi.
Hi, James.
Yes, Charlotte.
Hi, Georgina.
Hello, Charlotte.
Hi. Well, I want to go off the subject a little bit. I saw a couple of UFOs a couple of months ago.
Uh-huh.
And, well, if I talk about it, people ridicule me, and I just really wanted to tell you about them, see what you thought.
Mm-hmm.
First one I saw was end of August, and my room's in the attic, so I've got a good view of the stars and that.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like a jet fighter pilot, except it appeared out of nowhere because it was a clear night. It was like green. So it did a 90 degrees turn and then disappeared again. And it was a clear night, so it didn't go into clouds or anything. And then the whole thing lasted less than a couple of seconds. It was really quick. And then in September, there was like a bright star, 5 times as big, 5 times as bright. It's like, you know, brightest star in the sky. And it was on the hill, and I thought, you know, maybe it's a tractor or something, but it wasn't, because it rose up. It went behind a tree, and it just completely disappeared, and it was a clear night again, so it could have gone behind a cloud. I was just wondering what you thought.
Was it going at any particular speed? I mean, very fast or something?
Moderate. Like imagine a helicopter. But it wasn't a helicopter.
And are you used to seeing air traffic in the area?
Yeah, definitely.
Yes.
Yeah.
What you should do, I mean, I think, but what you should do, Charlotte, is you should go, if there's a local airport or airfield near you, they probably have radars there who will keep there must be an airfield near wherever you are in Somerset. You should maybe be able to ask them if there was anything this night on their radar, if there's anything that could explain it or not.
That's a good starting point.
But I wouldn't worry one bit. I mean, I've seen a UFO, or I've seen something that has been flying. This was sort of over 30 years ago I saw this. I used to live on the 18th floor of a tower block in the east end of London.
You saying that,
and, you know, this thing was going in kind of pyramid shapes across the sky and then just darted off. It wasn't a helicopter, and it wasn't, I don't know what it was. And I've never forgotten it. And I mean, obviously, we'd be completely barking, wouldn't we, if we could actually put our hands on our hearts and say there's nothing out there.
I think, you know, Charlotte is right. People do tend to ridicule you when you talk about UFOs. And this is the terrible thing. This is a terrible thing about it. You know, I mean, how many people have had these experiences. How many people have seen UFOs and don't talk about it, James, like Charlotte, because we're afraid of being ridiculed.
Exactly. All right, Charlotte, thank you very much indeed. Frank is in Tunbridge. Okay, Frank, you're on the air.
Oh,
Hi.
thanks very much. Good morning, James. Good morning, Georgina.
Good morning, Frank.
I was just listening earlier on in bed. I've just come down to phone you because it took me back to years ago when I bought the tape of the message or the tape you just played. I bought the video, and I can't remember whether I bought it from...
Video of what, Frank?
A video of the Rendlesham Forest sighting.
I didn't even know there was one, Frank.
Yeah, there is. I've got it in my collection somewhere. But
you mean the Strange But True television?
I might have taken it off the Strange But True.
Okay.
I think you probably did, Frank.
I thought you were talking about something we didn't know about there.
Well, I don't know. I couldn't remember whether I bought it from the chap.
Anyway, let's get to the point, Frank. Got lots of calls coming in.
Yeah,
Frank, can I just stop you there just for a moment? You are not talking about a video that was made at the scene, are you? You're talking about something that was recorded from a television programme.
Yeah, it might have been. I can't remember because...
Well, if you don't know, Frank, what on earth are you phoning for?
Well, can I just say, James, because of the flood, I've moved it. I've been moving...
Yeah, no, Frank, I'm not interested. I haven't got much time, and Georgina's only going to be here this once talking about this. What is it that you want to say about that tape?
It exactly like the voices that you just played, the tape that I've got.
Well, it may well be the same voices, Frank.
Yeah, because you said it's different, the original one you had. But the one I've got sounds exactly the same, the voices on the tape I've got.
Yes, I think that was the Strange But True programme where they did play parts of this tape. The one that I have is the first copy of the... you probably missed this, of the original, the very first copy. The one that was put out to the public was a very bad copy. So, yes, I think you're talking, Frank, about the
Strange But True. Yeah, but he's not sure, so never mind. Right, Mike in Norwich, you're on the air. Hi, Mike.
Hello there, Georgina.
Hello, Mike.
Yeah, going back to that point, the tape I listened to on James Wells Show is the one thing you can't hear is the radio pauses. The guy's running constantly and giving a conversation, but there's no transmission pauses. Like the send and the go back. Is that being doctored for you or what?
Well, I found we found several breaks where it's in the transcript in the back of You Can't Tell the People, my book. There's several breaks in the tape where you can actually hear on this one. You see, this is so much better than the original.
Let me just get this right. This is a recording that isn't a recording off their personal radios, but a recorder that the guy had with him, which they had with them.
It was a pocket radio.
A pocket thing, yeah. So you wouldn't necessarily hear that, Mike.
So what you've got to realise is in 1980, the actual radios they were using were, they normally held them on the lapel.
That's right.
And to actually transmit and send a message, they actually pressed the button and they obviously transmitted whatever they wanted to, let go of it, and they got a message back. Now, listening to the tape, it seems constant, as though there's no transmit, there's no pause, there's no nothing. It seems as though everything's been taken. Now, if you're running to something and you're seeing something and you're out of breath,
well, it sounded... I heard those. I heard the clicks on the radio. I heard them pressing the radio and talking to each other.
And you know, one of the things that was pointed out about this tape also was that you couldn't hear them tramping through the forest, which you can do on this one. You can hear them tramping. But the tape, in my opinion, is still edited. You know, that's an edited version.
This is what I was saying. I think it is an edited sort of tape.
Yes.
And they have... I don't know who, but I think they're not giving you everything you should have.
Well, we know that.
Okay, thank you. I think that can be said definitely, Mike. Thank you. Neil in Oxford, you're on the air. Hi.
Hi, James.
Yes, Neil.
Good morning, Georgina.
Good morning, Neil.
I've just finished your book, actually, just the other day. It's fascinating. It's an excellent book. Leading on from what the last gentleman was saying about the tape, there are breaks on the tape, as you said, and I think it's well known, isn't it, that the light-alls that the military men had in the forest were malfunctioning that night.
That's right. One of them was actually the connections to the earphones on it were broken.
Right. Well, this is what I was thinking of. If the light-alls were malfunctioning due to...
Oh, sorry, that was on the Giga counter I'm talking about. Yes, the light-alls were not functioning properly.
Right. Now, if they were malfunctioning due to whatever was being emitted by this unknown craft in the woods, then why did Lieutenant Colonel Charles Holtz tape recorder continued to work throughout the incident. And maybe if it didn't continue to work, that would account for the breaks in the tape that you've noted this evening.
Well, that's the point, but...
I mean, I'm not saying... I'm not trying to defend the incident. Just
Neil, I think what Georgina actually thinks is that somebody's edited out some more information from this. You know, the tape is interesting and fascinating, but there are some bits in it she thinks that have been taken out.
Well,
yes.
It's possible. It's very
I mean, it's an 18-minute tape out of a 4-hour encounter.
So they would have to be careful how much they were putting on the tape,
yes.
what they were describing.
Yes.
But I was just wondering if you considered the possibility that maybe, you know, or the anomaly, if you like, that this tape had continued to work, whereas the light halls were malfunctioning, because it was, you know, electrical equipment. It was not working.
It was gas, actually. The light halls were filled with gas.
Right, but they came on by...
And this wasn't electrical, though. You have a point, because it was batteries. He put a fresh set of batteries in before he left, Lieutenant Colonel Hall. So it's interesting that you say that, because, you know, why, indeed, weren't the batteries drained? I know he grabbed a handful of batteries, so, you know, it's always possible. But that's very interesting, that.
Secondly, Georgina, very quickly, are you planning to come to Oxford very soon, in the near future, to deliver a talk?
Well, if I get an invitation to do a talk there, I probably will.
Recently, we founded a student society here at Oxford University.
I've heard about that.
Did you?
Yes.
Well,
as long as they're not begging for money, that's
no,
the matter.
not at all. But it's just that cases like this, which are credible cases, deserves to be talked about, you know, in a serious atmosphere. So
where can they get in touch to get hold of you, Georgina? Your publisher, I suppose.
Yes.
Well, if you'd like to come down, you'd be most welcome.
I'd love to come down. Absolutely, yes.
Well, I'll be in touch anyway.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye now.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah, so you get a booking straight away. Me trying to take my 70s and 80s musical roadshow around the universities and give them a good night out, they're not interested. She gets a bunch of guys asking her down there. She's definitely going. I thought you and Nick Pope were romantically linked.
No, that's just a rumour. Mulder and Scully. I'm about 20 years older than Scully.
I've just been given some secret information.
What?
Do you know Lee Strickland? Have you heard of a Lee Strickland? Have you heard of SOIA?
Well, no, come on. Don't...
Operation Grill Frame.
Oh, yes.
I've got some data here for you to check up.
Oh, right.
But don't tell anybody.
No, don't know. This is a secret.
That's all I know.
No, Nick did the forward to my book, as you know, and you had him on here with his Operation Lightning Strike recently, wasn't it? And that's based a little bit on the Rendlesham Forest incident too. But you know, I know that's been said. He's too young. I'm not into toy boys, James.
No, well, never mind. Don't look at me like that. Sorry, Ash, she's trying to get me off the point here. What was this SOA
some guy rang in and said she'll know what I'm talking about. He just mentioned this. Lee Strickland asked the SOIA about Operation Grill Flame and referenced Colonel J. Holt.
Well, Colonel J. Holt was involved in
Charles.
Yeah.
Do you have that?
That's
information
all I've got, and he wouldn't give me his number or anything. He's just gone.
Oh, no number.
He didn't want to be identified. He was scared, man.
Okay.
He didn't want to talk about it on the air either.
No, he didn't want
which
to.
Is what we just.
That's very interesting.
Do you know anything about that?
Well, no. I mean, it's not something I've really investigated, but it's something I've heard of, and I certainly will have a look into that one.
She's been cagey again. Take a break.
I know.
Take that, you cat!
You swine!
Hi, Georgina.
Hi, Wayne.
Hi, I live in Newcastle, but I'm actually from the Ipswich area, and in the early 90s I used to work with a fella who's an ex-US serviceman who was at Mildenhall at the time, but he actually used to socialise with several people from the Bent Waters area, and I'm not sure, I haven't heard of the whole of the show, but
well, you missed the tape of the incident. You missed.
I have actually heard it because I mean, in the East Anglia area, it's quite well talked about this incident.
Right. Okay.
This gentleman actually, who I work with, knew several people who were involved in this, and I don't know how true this is. He'd said that about 2 weeks after the incident happened, quite a few of them were actually posted without any explanation to
away from the area.
To other areas.
That's correct.
To overseas. without any explanation at all. You never saw 2 or 3 of them again.
Do you know the amazing thing, Wayne, I'm finding is that so many people that were in that area listening just by chance tonight who actually knew about it, because to a lot of people, the unless you are interested in that sort of thing, the Rendlesham Forest UFO mystery will mean very little.
That's right. Well, there was another thing he told me that, like I say, I haven't heard most of the show. I've only heard the last half hour or so. He told me that there was reports that when they went there with, I don't know, radioactive measuring gear, that it went off the scale in the area that this incident happened. I don't know how true that is.
And sorry, this person that told you this, who was he again?
He's an ex-American serviceman. I used to work on the doors of several pubs and clubs, and he, like I say, he knew people, and this is what he was told, sort of, rumours within the American services that they actually took measurements with Geiger counters and things, and they went off the scale, and there was no reason why, and there were scorch marks on trees and things like that. How true is that?
I mean, this is what Adrian Bastinsa told me, the sergeant that recently talked. He said that it went... He was standing next to Neville's, who was the Geiger counter reader with the Geiger counter, and it went, really, wow, he said, and some other words as well, which won't go to... It really did go up, but you see, that part is not on the actual tape.
Yeah.
Very quickly, I mean... do you get reports throughout the whole of the East Anglia region? Because I had another friend, a very sensible man who would normally sort of scoff at this sort of thing, who I used to work with, arrived at work one morning. I was working in Norwich, and he looked as though he'd seen a ghost. He'd been travelling from Great Yarmouth to Norwich along the Acle Strait. I don't know if you're aware of the area. Very isolated road, and he swore blind. He had stood within 100 metres of a glowing disc that was landed in the field, and it just seems that, like, the East Anglia region, I don't know if it's because we have
a
lot of air bases in the area, it just seems to be like that there's loads of sightings, and a lot of people that are really that make these sightings are not people that you would sort of associate with making up the sort of stories.
Why do you think, Wayne, here's an interesting thought, why do you think that the authorities choose this area of the country? There are, aren't there, a number of air bases right...
I think it's because... I think it goes back to the war with the closeness to the coast.
Sure,
the Nazis, Luftwaffe. I think that's basically why there's so many bases in the first place. I think it comes from the war.
I just wondered whether it was an easy place for flying objects to get to and go away from or something.
It's on the coastline there.
All right, Wayne, thank you. Nice talking to you.
Thank you, Wayne.
Thanks.
Bye. Carol is in Manchester. Hi, Carol, you're on the air.
Hi, James. I've only just tuned into the show, but I heard Charlotte when she called, and she said that she'd had 2 sightings. The second one, she said it looked like a really bright star that sort of went along and then faded away, disappeared behind a hill or something like that. I'm quite sure that would have been an iridium flare, which is one of the satellites that sort of flares up like a bright star when the sun shines on it from a certain angle.
Could be.
Yeah,
Could be.
It just sounds very much like that.
Do they change direction very quickly and move? I mean, she said it was...
She didn't say that it did, though. She said it sort of disappeared.
No, she said it changed direction and headed off a different way.
That was the plane, wasn't it?
No. She said the light did.
Right. Well,
and she also said that it was very close. I mean, these iridium flares look as if they're stars, look as if they're a long way away. Yeah, no, this looked as if it was right there. You know how when you see a helicopter light or something like that?
Yeah, well, it could have been. It was just an idea, really. Yeah.
Well, are you a believer or not, Carol?
I don't know. There's probably something out there somewhere, but...
All right, thanks, Carol.
Okay, thanks.
Bye. Let's go to Cornwall. Malcolm, you're on the air. Hi.
Hello?
Yes, Malcolm.
Yeah, hi. Hi, James. I'm staying in Cornwall at the moment, just in a place out called Markham Church in Bude. On Sunday night, my wife and I were staying in a little cottage at the moment. We saw something in the sky, very, very strange, sort of bright light. And I first said to my wife, I thought it was something to do like an airport. Obviously realised that it wasn't near an airport at all. Went inside to get a pair of binoculars and obviously saw something bright in the sky. I couldn't see anything, it's very clear. And I did actually get my video camera and actually taped it, and I've got it on tape. I'm not interested in this thing normally at all. You're the first person I've spoken to apart from my sister, and my wife obviously spoke about it. But this was very strange. It's actually, I've got it on videotape, it was like a cylindrical ball bouncing up and down on the sky. And it seemed to, after a while, obviously I was videotaped, decided to disappear. but I don't know who to speak to about it.
Have you got a tape of it?
Yeah, I've got it on tape.
And is it clear?
It is very clear. My brother-in-law's actually seen it, and he was shocked. He just couldn't believe it.
That's interesting.
Very, very strange. I'm not messing about. I wouldn't mess about this sort of thing.
Yes.
But
I would either I'd contact Georgina and talk to her about it afterwards, or Nick Pope.
Or Nick Pope, or Timothy Good.
Yeah.
Even yes, one of those definitely, because that's more of that. I mean, that's more of they are more into military.
Yeah. If you drop me a line, actually, Malcolm, to me, and just say that you would like to be put in touch with Nick Pope or any of the other guys, then I'll do that for you.
Because obviously I don't live in this area. I don't visit my sister. I don't really see this area at all.
Right.
And
where do you normally live?
I live in Kent, actually. I have to be in Kent. Yeah.
But if you're right, then I'll put you in touch as long as you've got the. Don't lose the video.
No, that's secure. That is, but you know, this is not messing about at all. It's you know, it's made me eerie about it because it's just so strange when you see it in the sky.
Yeah,
Very
I mean,
strange.
this is a good thing about home video, video.
Because most video evidence isn't, and it's.
Well, the coincidence was that I needed to bring my video camera, and I just obviously the reason I put the video camera on is because it's got such a good digital zoom. I could see that close up, and. This is very strange. My brother-in-law was very, very shocked when he saw it.
Drop me a line and I'll see what I can do.
That's interesting.
Thanks a lot.
All right. The program tonight with Georgina Bruni. Her book is called You Can't Tell the People. It's about the Rendlesham Forest UFO mystery, and it is published by who is it published by?
Sidgwick and Jackson.
Okay, and it's out in the shops now. Or in your local library. Simon in Dagenham, you're on the air. Simon, can you load up some more calls? Here we go. Hi.
Hello there.
Simon.
Hello. How are you doing? Hello?
Yes, Simon, go on.
Hello, yeah. I'd like to ask Georgina a question. Is it true there was reports that as the soldiers approached the object, there was time-space distortions?
That's right, especially on the first incident.
Can we explain to those of us who are a bit stupid, time-space distortions? What's that?
Yes, what they experienced was hairs on the back of their necks and arms standing up, and also a feeling of just going in slow motion, and that's something that apparently has been linked with what? Sorry, what was? Is this what's the gentleman's name?
Simon.
Simon. Sorry, Simon.
Hello. No.
Yes, that's what you're talking about, isn't it?
That's right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's been documented.
Yes, that's what the witnesses say.
Yeah, because you find a lot of pilots, like professional pilots, who have encountered UFOs like around the world, have had missing time, and just ordinary people who have had encounters with UFOs and aliens and such sort of third encounters.
Well, this is very interesting, Simon, because the third witness that I just found, Edward Kavanasak, there were 3 witnesses. I know that Penniston, one of them talks about missing time, and also the Burroughs talks about missing time, but Penniston it's also had missing time. Now, what was interesting about that, Simon, was that when I talked to him, he was telling me about what happened before and after. Yeah. But he couldn't remember what happened in between, and it's actually confused him. He's very upset about it now because he's saying, well, what happened in between? Well, what happened, Yeah. And so he has a complete blank.
This seems to be something that everybody that has something like this says, it's like we weren't away for very long.
Mm-hmm.
And then find out they've been away for maybe half a day, even more.
Yeah. There was about 40 minutes missing time, with all 3 of them relating the same thing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's very frustrating because I think you need progressive hypnosis to find out what had actually happened or what they experienced.
Well, James Penniston did have regression, and 2 times, and found some amazing things out. Came up with names and all sorts of things. I mean, some people don't go for that. But for him it was very good because he remembered names of people that he had long forgotten. And of course, we've come up with these names now, so yes, there was something to his hypnotic regression.
Okay.
The one thing that really did upset Penniston was that he said that he was given sodium pentothal and hypnotized. Yeah, hypnotized whilst he was being interrogated by whichever agents interrogated him after the event.
Okay. Simon, thank you for your call. Bob is in Glasgow. You're on the air, through to Georgina Bruni.
Hello, James.
Yes, Bob.
Hi, can I speak to Georgina, please?
Yes, come on.
Hello, Bob.
Hello, how are you doing?
Fine, thank you.
Hi. Just to let you know, actually, that I believe I've had 3 sightings of UFOs. throughout my life. I'm 51 at the moment.
Great, we're very happy to know that. And let's get to the point here, Bob.
The first sighting when I was 15, second one about 20 years ago.
Bob, is there a point here, or are you just going to tell me you've seen them?
Right, I believe I've been abducted.
Yeah.
Right, and I've actually had proof of it.
And tell me about the proof, Bob.
Okay, I went along to a spiritualist church several times, and normally you get messages from your dearly departed and so on. On 2 occasions, different mediums actually brought through aliens to me, and the mediums were actually freaked out.
What sort of aliens were these, Bob?
Small, about 3.5 to 4 feet tall, with large eyes, and they gave me a message basically saying that I didn't imagine what I had seen, but that no one would believe me if I told them about it in any case.
So you were best not to tell them?
Sorry?
So they were saying to you it's better if you don't say anything, yeah?
Yes, but I am aware that they have been actually in our midst for quite some time now.
Bob, what do you think, when they abducted you, Bob, what do you think actually was the purpose of that abduction?
To be honest with you, I have no idea at all. And, you know, that's just been completely honest about it.
Yeah. Have you been back to the spiritualist church and asked them to have another go at this?
The only thing is, well, what happened in the first instance, it was a male medium, and he said to me, he said, I've got some spacemen here, or what I can only describe as spacemen. And he said, oh, this is freaking me out. He says, I don't normally get anything like this, and I don't know whether to go ahead with it. I can't bring it out in a church. So he said, look, go for it. So he spoke to me, and he said that they're here, and they're here to say hello to you, and what have you, and just to say about your experience, that you didn't imagine it. And he then said that he saw me lying on some sort of table or something, and from there he said, look, no, this is absolutely freaking me out. And he gave up, and I actually tried to speak to the person who ran the church after that to have a word with the medium, and they wouldn't allow me.
So it freaked him out completely, didn't it?
It freaked him out completely. I got a subsequent message, actually, it was about 3 or 4 months later, through a different medium, a lady this time, and she said it was it was a gentleman who had investigated. He was an American gentleman. She described him soft hat, glasses, and beard, and he was involved with a project in America, and it was to do with UFOs. Now, I got the thing that it was J. Allen Hynek.
Oh, yes.
Okay. Now, he basically said that no one believed him either.
Yes,
and that basically I didn't imagine what I'd seen, and that no one believed me either. Now, I've been trying actually to get some sort of form of regression, but I don't know where to...
I was actually going to say that, you know, Nick Pope is very much into the study of abductions. Yes,
he's been abducted, we think.
Oh, yeah.
We think
I heard that room. But he's the person that I think you should talk to about this.
And his publisher is...
his publisher is Simon & Schuster.
Yeah. Get in touch with them. Thank you, Bob. Russell in... actually, to be quite honest, we're right out of time. I didn't realise it's come up to the end of it. Tomorrow, before we go, I'll be talking to a gentleman who is about to go and dig under the Sphinx and the pyramids, because apparently the Egyptian authorities have finally granted a license to a team to search under the Great Pyramids for some previously undiscovered tombs. Whether or not there is this fabled Hall of Records of Atlantis or not, we'll find out tomorrow. Georgina, this has been fascinating. Thank you very much indeed. And your book, of course, is called You Can't Tell the People. It's about the Rendlesham Forest.
Thanks, Jim.
UFO mystery, and it's published by Sidgwick and Jackson. And it's in your shops now. It's fascinating. It really is, and that tape is fascinating too. We'll play the tape again.
Yeah, it's been great being here. Thanks a lot for inviting me.
Thanks a lot.